The heavens above Kthra Prime glowed crimson from the flames of combat. Hana gazed from the command deck of their final defense station, powerless as hostile vessels shredded their space shields like tissue. Her civilization had never been fighters. They were discoverers, researchers, gentle beings who dedicated their existence to exploring the cosmos instead of waging battles. "Leader, we've been defeated in zones 7 through 12, announced her signal officer, trembling. The Voron Armada is pushing forward everywhere. Hana shut her eyes for a moment. The Vorthons had a reputation throughout this corner of the universe as invaders. They moved from world to world, crushing anyone who resisted and capturing whole populations. 3 months earlier, they had demanded Kthra's submission. When her civilization refused, the attack started. "How many escape vessels got away?" she questioned. "Roughly 40% of our citizens, leader. Everyone else is stuck on the surface." 40%. That left countless millions of her civilization still below, hiding in bunkers while Vorthon soldiers prepared to descend. Hana had witnessed what the Vorthons inflicted on those who fought back. The footage from other defeated planets continued to plague her sleep. "Leader," another crew member shouted, "Dr. Minho wants approval to turn on the crisis transmitter." The crisis transmitter? Hana had nearly forgotten the ancient system. It was outdated machinery installed long ago when her civilization first ventured into space. The concept was straightforward. If Kthra ever faced total annihilation, they could broadcast a plea to any nearby societies and pray someone would respond. "Does it still function?" she questioned. "Dr. Minho confirms it works, but there's no promise anyone will answer. The network selects receivers randomly based on range and guest advancement levels." Hana stared at the blazing defense platforms. They had perhaps 6 hours before the Vorthons completed destroying their orbital defenses and began attacking the world underneath. 6 hours before her civilization faced total destruction. "Tell him to activate it," she whispered. Inside his workshop, buried within the defense station, Dr. Minho labored desperately at the transmitter controls. The worn device buzzed and crackled as it activated for the first time in ages. Minho led the science division for the Terran Defense Council, though he never expected he'd be utilizing his expertise to transmit a frantic call for rescue. The transmitter's screen displayed numerous potential receivers spread throughout neighboring solar systems. Most were civilizations the Kthran had never contacted. Some they recognized as unfriendly. A handful might be allies, but likely lacked the fighting strength to challenge the Voron Empire. "Please," Minho murmured as he sent the signal. "Someone, anyone, please respond." The message burst outward from Kthra Prime faster than light, delivering a basic plea in the common trade tongue. "This is Kthra Prime of the Kthran Republic. Our planet is being attacked by the Vorthon Empire. Our shields are breaking. Our population is in direct peril. Any help would be deeply appreciated. We are peaceful beings facing annihilation. Please respond." The signal reached 17 separate solar systems during the initial hour. Most governments that intercepted it archived the message or transmitted courteous rejections. The Altarian Confederacy was handling their own territorial conflicts. The Nexus Trade Alliance only intervened in situations that impacted business. The Crystal Singers of Vega 3 offered their thoughts and hopes. But on a tiny blue world called Earth, something unique occurred. Admiral Park was examining fleet training when Lieutenant Yuna Lee rushed into his office aboard the command ship TDS Harmony. She appeared both thrilled and concerned simultaneously. "Commander, we've intercepted an urgent message. It's strange." "Explain strange, Lieutenant." "It's a rescue call from a location roughly 30 light years away. The civilization identifies themselves as Kathrans. They claim they're being attacked and facing total destruction." Admiral Park frowned. "Kathrans? I don't know that name. Are they human settlers?" "Uncertain, Commander. The translation program is struggling with their tongue, but the plea seems obvious. They require help right away." Admiral Park pulled up the message on his personal display. The transmission was packed with descriptions of space bombardment, civilian deaths, and a gentle civilization facing obliteration. What grabbed his focus was a phrase the translator had rendered as, "Our brothers in the distant settlements request urgent help." "Lieutenant, how many vessels do we have nearby?" "The complete Third Fleet is running drills in the Proxima Zone. That's 47 ships, including 6 dreadnoughts and 3 carriers. And how long to arrive at this Kthra location?" Roughly 18 hours at top velocity, Commander. Admiral Park rose slowly. The plea painted an image of defenseless people being attacked by hostile powers. If these Kthra were actually human settlers who had lost connection with Earth, then they were his responsibility. And even if they weren't, the message portrayed exactly the type of crisis that required human action. Lieutenant, transmit an instant reply to Kthra Prime. Inform them rescue is approaching. Then connect me with Captain Kim on the Invictus and Captain Nam on the Phantom. I want all squadron leaders prepared for a meeting in 1 hour. Commander, shouldn't we notify Terra Command first? Admiral Park hesitated. Rules did demand he obtain approval for major squadron movements. But the plea had mentioned urgent peril and civilian deaths. How many beings would perish while he waited for officials on Earth to argue about response choices? Transmit the reply first. Inform these Kthra that humanity is responding. Then contact Terra Command and tell them I'm activating Protocol 7. Lieutenant Yuna's eyes grew wide. Protocol 7 meant complete war preparation. It hadn't been activated in more than 50 years. Commander, are you sure, Lieutenant? Somewhere beyond, beings are dying while hostile powers assault peaceful civilians. That's precisely what Protocol 7 was created for. Transmit the message. Back on Kthra Prime, Dr. Minho could barely accept what he was reading. Of the 17 societies that had intercepted their rescue call, only one had replied favorably. A civilization called Terra Humans had transmitted back a quick message. Kthra Prime, this is Admiral Park of the Terran Defense Initiative. We have intercepted your rescue call. Rescue is approaching. Maintain position and safeguard civilians. Arrival time 18 hours. Leader Hana, Mino contacted over the signal network. We received a reply from whom? Hana's voice returned through the interference. A civilization called Terra Humans. They claim rescue is approaching in 18 hours. There was a break. What do we understand about them? Mino scanned his records quickly. Not much. They are recorded as a recently space-traveling civilization from a small world. Restricted military presence according to our files, but they replied, which is better than nobody did. On the command deck, Hana experienced a small flicker of optimism for the first time in cycles. Even if these Terra Humans could only dispatch a modest force, it would be superior to nothing. Perhaps they could at least assist with the departure. How long do we have before the Vorthans complete with our space defenses? She questioned. Perhaps 8 hours, Leader. 10 if we're fortunate. 8 hours to survive until rescue came. Hana studied her remaining team. Exhausted, frightened beings who had been battling a pointless fight for cycles. They earned the right to know that someone somewhere had heard their plea for rescue. All posts, this is Leader Hana, she declared over the vessel's signal network. We have received confirmation that help is approaching. A civilization called Terra Humans is dispatching rescue. We just need to survive a little longer. Our civilization is depending on us. As she talked, Hana had no clue that her basic rescue call had just activated the biggest military preparation in human history. The Terra Humans were approaching, and they were bringing everything they possessed. The meeting room aboard the TDS Harmony had never hosted so many senior commanders in one location. Admiral Park studied the table at his squadron leaders, some of the hardest, most skilled fighters in human territory. They had been summoned from training drills and normal patrols with basic explanation, informed only that they were confronting an urgent crisis. Captain Keong Kim of the heavy battleship TDS Invictus voiced first. Commander, respectfully, what precisely are we handling? The information materials mentioned an assault on human settlers, but I have no records of colonies in that area. Admiral Park turned on the three-dimensional screen in the room's center. The alien rescue plea appeared along with what limited intelligence they had collected about the crisis. The translation is flawed, he acknowledged, but the basics are obvious. A peaceful civilization is being attacked by something labeled the Overrun Empire. They're experiencing space bombardment and ground assault. Civilian deaths are increasing. Captain Sujin Nam leaned closer in her seat. She led the stealth ship TDS Phantom, and her vessel focused on scouting and precise attacks. Commander, the language patterns are odd. Are we positive these are human settlers? Does it change anything? Admiral Park questioned quietly. The room became quiet. Every person there knew the response to that question, even if they didn't want to voice it aloud. Leader Dong Hyun Choi, who commanded the Marine unit aboard the attack cruiser TDS Retribution, spoke up. Commander, my troops are prepared to move, but I need to know what we're entering. How large is this Vorthan power? Unknown but large enough to defeat an entire solar system's defenses. And we're moving in with just the third fleet? Admiral Park smiled darkly. Not precisely. I've activated Protocol 7. The responses around the table varied from shocked quiet to thrilled grins. Protocol 7 hadn't been triggered since the Centauri conflict 50 years earlier. It meant complete preparation of all human fighting resources within distance of the emergency. Lieutenant Yuna Lee stepped into the meeting room with a tablet. Commander, Terra Command has approved your Protocol 7 permission. Squadron movements are already starting. The 5th Fleet is advancing from the Taeti Zone. The 8th Fleet is leaving from Luna Station. Colonial defense powers from 12 locations are adding vessels. How many ships combined? Asked Captain Kim. Present total is 137 vessels, Commander. More are joining every hour. Captain Nam gasped quietly. That's not a rescue party. That's a war fleet. Admiral Park agreed. The plea we intercepted portrayed an image of mass murder in progress, peaceful beings being slaughtered by hostile powers. Whether they're human settlers or not, they requested rescue. And when defenseless beings request humanity for rescue, we don't dispatch a token party. We dispatch everything we possess. Several hours afterward, in the machinery bay of the TDS Invictus, Chief Engineer Tejo Yu was managing preparations for what everyone was labeling the Kthra mission. His crews had been laboring continuously to ready the vessel's arms and shield networks for major fighting. Chief, the primary batteries are powered and prepared, announced Petty Officer Jin A. Park. We've filled the new tungsten-piercing rounds for the magnetic cannons. Excellent. What about the barrier creators? Operating at maximum capability. The power modifications from last month are succeeding. We've gained 20% more energy available. Joe agreed with approval. The Invictus was one of humanity's latest battleships, created specifically for major squadron battles. Her primary cannons could blast holes through space rocks, and her plating could endure anything short of a direct strike from a nuclear missile. But it wasn't just the large vessels that were preparing. Throughout human territory, smaller ships were also joining the mission party. Captain Yoon Ji-yoon led the light attack ship TDS Swift Justice, part of the colonial defense power from New Seoul. Her vessel wasn't as strong as the military battleships, but her team was just as committed. Captain, we've intercepted our movement instructions, her second officer announced. We're to meet with the primary force at the Kthra location in 16 hours. Captain Yoon examined the tactical screen. Any information on what we're confronting? Intelligence indicates a major Imperial power. Multiple capital vessels, widespread ground powers, and civilians are trapped in the center. Yes, Captain. Captain Yoon's face hardened. She had matured on New Seoul, one of humanity's more peaceful settlements. The thought of hostile aliens attacking helpless civilians activated something deep and primal in her mind. Plot direction for Kthra. Top velocity and transmit a communication to the power room. I want every bit of energy they can provide me. Meanwhile, on the world Kthra Prime, the crisis was worsening quickly. Leader Hana observed from her command room as the final of their space shield platforms went dark. The Varan Armada now had total control of the void around their planet. Leader, we're sensing Varan descent vessels entering the air, announced her sensor worker. Estimated 40,000 soldiers in the initial attack. Hana felt ill. 40,000 hostile troops against her world's basic ground shields. The Kthran had always been discoverers and researchers, not fighters. Their fighting force was created for order-keeping and crisis aid, not stopping a complete invasion. What about the departure locations? She questioned. Still filling civilians, but the Vorthans are hitting the movement roads. We've stopped contact with locations 4 through 7. Dr. Minho's voice returned through the signal network. Leader, I'm still intercepting updates from the Terra-Human Squadron. They announce they are traveling with major powers. How major? The figures keep shifting, but their final message mentioned over 100 vessels. Hana stopped. 100 vessels seemed like a massive force, but she had no reference for human fighting abilities. For all she knew, human vessels might be small guard ships with basic weapons. Any information on when they'll come? Roughly 14 hours, assuming their velocity guesses are right. 14 hours. Hana studied the tactical screen displaying Vorthon powers spreading across her home planet like a disease. Could her civilization survive for 14 more hours? All shield groups, this is command, she declared. We have verification that Allied powers are traveling. Major Allied powers. We need to maintain our locations and safeguard civilian departure locations until they come. I know we're not fighters, but today we battle for our families, our children, and our tomorrow. Make every strike matter. In the void of space, the human mission squadron was expanding larger by the hour. Vessels that had been dispersed across numerous solar systems were gathering on a single point, the Kthra location. It was the biggest preparation of human fighting power since the civilization had reached the cosmos. Admiral Park stood in his office, examining the newest squadron reports. The figures were shocking even to him. Battleships, attack ships, destroyers, carriers, aid vessels. Humanity was dispatching everything it possessed. Lieutenant Yuna stepped in with another update. Commander, the Martian defense power is adding 6 vessels. The Jupiter Station Squadron is dispatching 12, and we've just received information that the Europa Marine Division is readying for ground deployment. Ground deployment? We don't even know if we'll require ground powers. Commander, Command felt it was superior to possess them and not require them than the opposite. Admiral Park agreed. That was human fighting thinking in a word, crushing preparation for any chance. Lieutenant, transmit a communication to the squadron. All vessels are to ready for instant fighting upon arrival. Guidelines of battle are straightforward. Any power attacking Kthra or endangering civilians is to be viewed hostile and fought without warning. Commander, shouldn't we try contact first? Admiral Park thought about the rescue plea they had intercepted. Space bombardment, civilian deaths, a gentle civilization facing obliteration. The Vorthans started contact when they began attacking cities. We'll reply the same way. As the human squadron raced through hyperspace toward Kthra, neither the Kothnans nor the Vorthans had any clue what was approaching. The aliens who had transmitted a frantic call for rescue were about to learn that humanity treated the safety of innocents very seriously. And when humans chose to safeguard someone, they didn't dispatch a rescue operation. They dispatched a warfleet. General Thane stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Vorthon battleship Dominion, observing with pleasure as his powers completed their victory of the Kthra location. The aliens had offered a weak resistance, barely enough to be labeled a battle. In 3 cycles, his squadron had swept away their space shields and created total void superiority. General, the surface powers announced that civilian resistance is basic, his assistant announced. The Kathrans seemed to be concentrating on departure instead of battling. Normal behavior for a weak civilization, Tan replied dismissively. How long until we have total control of the world? Estimated 6 hours, Commander. The remaining population areas are poorly shielded, Tan agreed. Another simple victory for the Vorthon Empire. The Cathene would make decent slaves once they were correctly broken, and their planet held precious materials. It was precisely the type of triumph that would improve his position in the Imperial ranks. Commander! The sensor worker suddenly shouted. I'm sensing spatial oddities at the boundary of the location. Multiple contacts. Refugee vessels trying to flee. Thien questioned without much curiosity. Native, Commander. These are large contacts. Very large. Thien moved to the sensor post. His curiosity finally rose. The screen displayed numerous massive objects appearing from hyperspace at the location's boundary. As more sensors concentrated on the contacts, the information became sharper. Commander, those are war vessels. Large ones. I total 40. No, 60 contacts. The figures keep rising. What civilization? Thien ordered. Unknown, Commander. They're not in our records. For the first time since the assault started, General TH experienced a flicker of worry. The Voran Empire had thorough intelligence on all major fighting powers in this area of the void. If these vessels belonged to an unknown civilization, they represented either a first meeting crisis or a very unpleasant shock. Down on Kthra Prime, Dr. Minho was desperately working his sensor machinery when the readings started appearing on his displays. After cycles of observing nothing but Voran vessels, the sudden appearance of new contacts sent his hearts pounding. Hannah he contacted over the signal link. You need to witness this. Leader Hannah rushed to the sensor post, anticipating more terrible information about Vorton's surface powers. Instead, she witnessed something that made her breath stop in her throat. Are those vessels? She murmured. 67 contacts and still rising, Minho verified. They're massive, Hannah. Some of them are larger than anything in our records. Are they the Terra humans? I believe so. The starting contacts matched the predicted arrival time they provided us. Hana stared at the screen in stunned quiet. When the humans had claimed they were dispatching rescue, she had pictured a modest squadron of maybe 5 or 10 vessels. She had never imagined that any civilization would dispatch nearly 70 warships to rescue total strangers. "Leader, we're intercepting a message," the signals officer announced. "It's on all channels. Play it." A human voice filled the command room, speaking in accented but obvious common trade tongue. "This is Admiral Park of the Terran Defense Initiative. Fourth Hound Powers, you have assaulted our partners and performed acts of mass murder. You have 30 seconds to start withdrawing from the location, or we will eliminate you." The message ended, leaving the Kthra command room in stunned quiet. Hana had never heard such calm, assured authority in her existence. The human admiral talked as if 60-plus war vessels was just a normal day for his civilization. Aboard the Dominion, General Fane was experiencing a very different response to the human message. His starting shock was quickly becoming imperial pride. "Partners," he mocked. "These Kthra requested random help, and now these unknowns claim they're partners. Commander, should we reply?" His signals officer questioned. "Obviously we reply. Who do these primitives believe they are?" They turned on the squadron signal network. "Unknown civilization. You are interfering with a rightful victory approved by the Vorthon Empire. This location and all its materials now belong to us by right of superior power. Leave instantly or confront the results." The reply came back almost right away. "Transmitted on every channel in the location. 30 seconds finished. All human vessels, you are arms free. Display them while you don't assault the defenseless while humans draw breath." What occurred next would be examined in fighting schools. Across the universe for ages to follow, the human squadron had arranged itself in a flawless battle pattern while the Vortons were occupied by talks. Admiral Park's command ship, the TDS Harmony, held the middle while the massive battleships spread out in a fighting line. The human carriers had already released their fighter groups, creating swarms of small, quick-moving targets that buzzed around the larger vessels. Captain Kung-Si Kim, leading the TDS Invictus, had used the travel time examining everything intelligence could reveal about Vorthon vessel patterns. Their ships were created for fear and crushing firepower against weaker opponents, but they lacked the advanced shield networks that human vessels carried. "All batteries target the lead Vorton attack ship," he instructed full-spread tungsten piercers. The Invictus's primary cannons fired together. 8 massive magnetic cannon slugs, each massing several tons and moving at a major fraction of light velocity, struck the Voran attack ship in flawless order. The hostile vessel's barriers flashed briefly, then failed. The tungsten rounds punched through the hull like it was made of tissue. The Vorton attack ship burst in a brilliant flash of light. Throughout the human squadron, similar events played out as vessel after vessel fired. The humans had used ages perfecting their arms and methods for major squadron battles. The Vorthons, used to intimidating weaker opponents, found themselves confronting an opponent that was not only their match, but their superior in every part of combat. Captain Wanji Han led the TDS Unbreakable, the biggest vessel in the human squadron. His battleship carried arms created to split worlds, and he was not reluctant to utilize them. When a Vorthon warship tried to escape toward the world, Han's vessel fired its primary spine mount cannon. The energy ray, powered by the vessel's complete power output, struck the escaping warship at the middle. The Voron ship simply broke apart, ripped into 2 sections by the pure force of the strike. "Target the next biggest vessel," Han instructed calmly. "These beings need to comprehend that assaulting defenseless civilians has results." In the chaos of combat, Captain Sujin Nam's stealth ship, TDS Phantom, was tracking Vorthon command vessels. Her ship had been created for precisely this type of work, slipping through hostile patterns and removing high-value targets. "Captain, I have a clear strike at what appears to be their command ship," her arms officer announced. "Are there any human vessels in the firing path?" "Negative. Clean strike. Fire." The Phantom's missiles were created for stealth and maximum harm. They approached the Voran command ship undetected, their explosive charges armed with antimatter loads. When they struck, General TH's vessel vanished in a burst of destruction energy that briefly outshined the location's sun. On Kthra Prime, the Catherine defenders observed the combat with a mixture of wonder and fear. The humans battled with a precision and intensity that defied understanding. Every movement was arranged, every strike flawlessly placed. They moved through the Vorten squadron like top hunters, taking apart vessels with surgical capability. "Dr. Minho," Leader Hana whispered quietly, "what precisely have we gotten ourselves into?" Minho was examining the sensor readings with rising amazement. "I don't believe we requested rescue, Hana. I believe we accidentally awakened one of the universe's top fighting powers." The combat lasted precisely 47 minutes. When it finished, the complete Vorthon assault squadron had been obliterated or disabled. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed, and only 3 had announced basic harm. Admiral Park's voice once again filled the location's signal channels. "Kthra Prime, this is Admiral Park. The urgent danger to your location has been stopped. We are sensing Vorthon surface powers on your world. Do you need help with surface actions?" Leader Hana studied around her command room at her tired, amazed team. They had transmitted out a random rescue call, hoping someone, anyone, might dispatch a few vessels to assist with departure. Instead, they had called humanity, and humanity, it appeared, treated the safety of defenseless beings very seriously. "Admiral Park," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "We would be very thankful for any help you can offer." "Understood. Marine descent actions will start instantly. Stay strong down there. The rescue has come." The initial attack of human Marines struck Kthra Prime like a tempest. Master Sergeant Jinwoo Park guided his unit down from the assault vessels in armored descent capsules, their heat barriers glowing white-hot as they cut through the air. He had battled in border situations and order-keeping actions, but never in a freedom operation like this. "Pay attention," he yelled over the signal network as the capsule screamed. "Planet direction. Intelligence claims the Vorthons have 40,000 soldiers on the surface, mostly gathered around the major population centers. Our task is to position between them and the civilian population. Guidelines of battle are straightforward. If they're firing at civilians or us, eliminate them." The descent capsules struck the surface outside Kthra Prime's main population center with massive force, creating small holes in the alien ground. Sergeant Park kicked open his capsule's opening and instantly started taking fire from Voran locations in the nearby structures. "Contact ahead!" he shouted, jumping for protection behind his capsule. Vorthons in the government complex, his Marines deployed with practiced capability, establishing shield locations and returning fire. The Vorons had been anticipating to battle lightly armed Catherine civilians, not heavily equipped human troops. The initial exchange of gunfire made it obvious they were severely outmatched. Private Kyoong Min Lee was operating the unit's heavy arm, a portable magnetic cannon that could punch through vehicle plating. "Sergeant, I've got multiple contacts in the upper levels of that structure. Eliminate them." Lee's arm buzzed as it powered, then fired with a sharp crack. The tungsten slug punched through the structure's outer wall like it was made of cardboard, and the Voron firing location went quiet. "Excellent strike. Continue it up." Similar events were playing out across the world as human Marines descended at every major Vorten gathering. The aliens had anticipated in simple occupation of a helpless planet. Instead, they found themselves battling a 3-dimensional combat against an opponent that seemed to materialize everywhere at once. "Lieutenant." So young Kim was guiding her unit through the residential zone, where thousands of Catherine civilians were stuck in their homes. The Vorthons had been moving door to door, gathering up families for handling. Now they found themselves being attacked by humans who battled with a fury that frightened them. "Captain, we've got civilians in that structure," Corporal Zhang announced, indicating an apartment complex surrounded by Vorten soldiers. "How many hostiles?" "Looks like maybe 20. They've got the structure surrounded." Lieutenant Kim examined the tactical crisis quickly. The Vortons were utilizing the civilians as human barriers, making a direct assault risky. But she had trained for precisely this type of situation. "Corporal, take your unit around the rear. Wait for my signal, then strike them from behind. I'll take the rest and move through the front." "Captain, that's many hostile soldiers for a frontal assault." Kim smiled darkly. "Corporal, these Vorthans have been battling civilians for 3 cycles. They're about to discover what occurs when you confront actual troops." The assault was quick and decisive. Kim's unit struck the Vorton locations from the front, while Corporal Young's group attacked from behind. Trapped between two powers of highly trained Marines, the Vorton soldiers lasted less than 5 minutes. "Structure safe," Kim shouted. "Medical groups, we need civilian departure aid." In the void above the world, the human squadron was arranging the surface assault with mechanical precision. Admiral Park had created his command room aboard the TDS Harmony, where he could watch both the space crisis and the surface actions. "Commander, we're sensing Vorthon reinforcements entering the location," Lieutenant Yuna announced. "Looks like a major squadron, at least 50 vessels." Admiral Park examined the tactical screen. The new Voran power was bigger than the original assault squadron, obviously sent to handle what the Empire assumed was a small relief power. They had no clue what they were flying into. Build of the hostile squadron, multiple warships, heavy attack ships, and what looks like soldier transports. They're definitely planning to recapture the location. Time to stop. 40 minutes at present approach velocity. Admiral Park agreed. Signal all vessels ready for round 2, and transmit a communication to the Vorton squadron. Inform them they have one opportunity to submit and leave. Captain Yunji Yun was aboard the carrier TDS Valkyrie when the new Vorthon squadron appeared. Her vessel carried over 200 fighters and bombers piloted by some of humanity's finest fighting pilots. She had been waiting for an opportunity to display what her air wing could accomplish. "All groups launch instantly," she instructed. "Target priority is hostile capital vessels and soldier transports. Do not allow them to descend reinforcements on the world." The fighter groups burst from the Valkyrie's release bays like angry insects. Each pilot had trained for years in vessel-to-vessel fighting, and they flew their small, quick fighters with deadly precision. Group leader Tamin Yu guided the initial attack of assaults against the incoming Voran squadron. His fighter was tiny compared to the hostile warships, but it carried arms that could harm much bigger ships. "Dragon leader to all dragons," he shouted over the group channel. "Target the lead warship. Focus fire on their power sections. Let's strand them in void." His group dove toward the massive Vorthon ship, avoiding shield fire as they closed to assault distance. The hostile vessels' point shield networks were created to halt missiles and explosives, not quick-moving fighters piloted by humans who seemed to have no concern for their own safety. "Dragon 3. I'm struck," shouted out one of his pilots. "Dragon 3, this is Dragon Leader. Can you make it back to the carrier?" "Negative, Commander. Power's gone. Life aid failing." You observed as his wingman's fighter started to spiral toward the Voran warship. For a moment, he thought the pilot was going to try to escape. Instead, Dragon 3's voice came over the radio one final time. "Dragon Leader, inform my family I performed my duty. Dragon 3 going suicide strike." The fighter slammed into the Voran warship's command section at complete velocity, its remaining fuel and ammunition exploding in a brilliant burst. The hostile vessel instantly started to tilt as its command networks failed. "Dragon 3 verified down," you announced, his voice tight with feeling. "All dragons make it matter. Our beings are dying to safeguard those civilians down there." The human fighter groups tore through the Vorthon, squadron with destroying capability. What the aliens had assumed would be in simple reconquest turned into another massacre, as human pilots threw themselves at hostile vessels with suicide courage. Back on the world's surface, the surface combat was arriving at its end. The Vorthan powers had been dispersed and defeated by the sudden appearance of human Marines who battled with a skill and commitment they had never met. Dr. Minho had created signal with the human surface leaders and was assisting arrange the freedom of Katherine's civilian areas. He found himself working directly with Captain Dong-Hyun Choi, who guided the Marine assault on the world's primary spaceport. "Dr. Minho, we need to know how many of your beings are still in the handling areas," Captain Choi announced over the radio. "Handling areas?" "The buildings where the Vorthons were keeping captured civilians. Our scouts announce at least 3 major locations." Minho felt ill. He had feared the Vorthons were taking prisoners, but the reality was even worse than he had pictured. "There could be thousands of beings in those buildings. Then we'll retrieve them out. All of them." The assault on the handling areas was the most intense battling of the surface campaign. The Vorthons had strengthened the buildings and were ready to execute their prisoners instead of submit them. But they hadn't counted on confronting human troops who treated civilian deaths as a personal insult. Sergeant Park's unit struck the biggest handling area with crushing power. Using braking charges and assault vehicles, they smashed through the Vorton shields in minutes. "Civilians found!" Park shouted as his group swept through the building. "Medical groups required instantly. We've got injured Catherans here." The sight that greeted the Marines was heartbreaking. Hundreds of Catherine families huddled together in cramped holding spaces, many injured, all frightened. But when they witnessed the human troops, something shifted in their faces. "You came?" murmured an elderly Catherine female to Sergeant Park. "You actually came. Captain, we're here to retrieve you out. Can you move?" Yes, I believe so. Excellent. Stay close to my Marines and we'll have you out of here in no time." As the freedom of Kthra Prime continued, information of the human mission started to spread throughout the universe. The Voran Empire had dispatched 2 complete squadrons to defeat a single location. Both squadrons had been totally obliterated by a human power that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. But more than the fighting triumph, it was the human behavior that shocked other societies. These weren't invaders or glory hunters, they were rescuers who had moved across void to rescue total strangers. And they battled with the fury of beings safeguarding their own families. Admiral Park stood in his office examining the combat reports. The second Vorthon squadron had been removed even more quickly than the first. Human deaths were remarkably light, proof of superior training and machinery. Catherine deaths would have been in the millions if the humans hadn't come when they did. "Commander," Lieutenant Yuna stepped in with a final report. "All Vorthon powers have been removed or captured. The world is safe. Civilian deaths. Final total is still arriving, but much lower than feared. The Catherine are labeling it a miracle." Admiral Park agreed slowly. "Lieutenant, transmit a communication to Terra Command. Kthra location is safe. Request instant humanitarian help for the civilian population." "Commander, the Chthons are questioning if they can talk with you directly. Their leadership wants to thank us." Admiral Park considered that. "How do you thank someone for stopping mass murder?" "Inform them I'll be happy to meet with their representatives." "And Lieutenant, yes, Commander. Make sure they comprehend this is what humanity does. When defenseless beings request rescue, we respond." The meeting occurred in what had once been the Catherine Planetary Council Chamber. The structure had experienced harm during the Voran occupation, but human construction groups had labored through the night to make it usable again. Leader Hana stood nervously at the head of the long table, flanked by Dr. Minho and the other surviving members of her government. Across from them sat Admiral Park, looking far less frightening than she had anticipated. He was younger than his voice had indicated, with kind eyes that seemed to carry the burden of leadership easily. Several of his senior commanders flanked him, including the Marines who had guided the surface assault. "Leader Hana," Admiral Park started. "First, let me express how sorry we are that your civilization had to experience such an ordeal. No society should have to confront what you confronted, Admiral." Hana struggled to find words. "I don't know how to thank you. When we transmitted that rescue signal, we hoped maybe someone would dispatch a few vessels to assist with departure. We never pictured that someone would appear with a complete squadron." Admiral Park smiled slightly. "Leader, there seems to have been some confusion in our starting communications. Our translation networks interpreted your plea as coming from human settlers in peril." Dr. Minho leaned closer. "You believed we were humans starting out?" "Yes. But even when we realized you were a different civilization completely, it didn't alter anything. You requested rescue. That was sufficient." The room became quiet as the meaning sank in. The humans had prepared their biggest squadron in ages to rescue total strangers, even after learning they weren't the same civilization. "But why?" Leader Hana questioned quietly. "Why risk so much for beings you'd never encountered?" Admiral Park thought about the question carefully. It was one he had been questioning himself since the combat finished. "In human society," he stated finally, "we have a phrase. The only thing required for evil to win is for good beings to do nothing. Your civilization requested rescue. They were confronting mass murder. That's all we needed to understand." Captain Kyong Kim, who had guided the void combat aboard the TDS Invictus, voiced up. "Leader, may I question what your civilization understood about humanity before this event?" Dr. Minho checked his tablet. "Very little, I'm afraid. Our files recorded you as a recently void-traveling civilization from a small world. We had no clue you possessed such fighting abilities." The human commanders exchanged looks. Lieutenant Yuni, who had been quiet until now, questioned, "What do your files state now?" "Now?" Dr. Minho looked slightly overwhelmed. Now we understand that humanity possesses one of the most powerful fighting powers in this area of the universe. Your arrangement, your machinery, your methods, we've never witnessed anything like it. Admiral Park agreed. We've been readying for major situations since we arrived at the cosmos. When humans battle, we battle to win decisively. But leader, that's not the critical thing here. The critical thing is reconstructing your planet. As if called by his words, the opening to the chamber opened, and a group of humans in construction uniforms stepped in. Guiding them was Leader Taiho Yu, the chief construction worker from the TDS Invictus Admiral. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to update the Kthran leadership on our rebuilding work. Please continue. Leader, you turned on a three-dimensional projector that showed a three-dimensional map of Kthra Prime. We've reviewed the harm to your major population, centers, and foundation. The positive information is that most of the vital networks can be fixed within a few weeks. We're bringing in construction groups from 12 human settlements to help. You're reconstructing our population centers? Anna questioned in amazement. Captain, it's the minimum we can do. Your civilization experienced because hostile powers attacked defenseless people. Humanity treats that personally. Dr. So Young Lim, the chief medical commander from the human squadron, stepped into the chamber carrying a medical tablet. Admiral, I wanted to announce on the civilian deaths. Admiral Park's face became serious. How terrible is it? Superior than we feared. Thanks to the Kthran departure work and our quick mission, total civilian deaths were under 10,000. It could have been millions. Leader Hana experienced tears forming in her eyes. 10,000 of her civilization were gone forever. But human action had rescued millions more. Dr. Lim, she stated softly. What do your civilization require from us? How can we repay this obligation? Captain, Admiral Park interrupted. There is no obligation. You don't owe us anything. But surely there must be something. Materials, machinery, territorial grants. The human commanders looked genuinely confused. Captain Dong Hyun Choi, who had guided the marine assault, shook his head. Leader, we didn't arrive here for payment. We arrived because beings required rescue. Dr. Minho had been examining the humans throughout the meeting, trying to comprehend their reasons. Admiral, forgive me, but this makes no strategic sense. You've dedicated enormous fighting materials to rescue a civilization that can offer you nothing in exchange. How do you justify this to your government? Admiral Park smiled. Dr. Minho, you're thinking like a politician. My government didn't dispatch us here for strategic benefit. They dispatched us because it was the correct thing to do. The correct thing to do? Hana repeated slowly. Is that really how your civilization makes choices when it comes to safeguarding defenseless people? Yes. The meeting continued for several more hours as the humans outlined their plans for helping with Kthra's recovery. Medical groups would remain to treat the injured. Construction teams would assist reconstruct harmed foundation. A small squadron would be positioned in the location to offer security while Kthra reconstructed its shields. But it was the final part of the discussion that would alter universal politics forever. Leader Hana, Admiral Park, stated as the meeting ended, the Terran Defense Initiative would like to offer Kthra a formal partnership. We comprehend if you require time to think. Yes, Hana stated instantly. I'm sorry. Yes, we accept, instantly and thankfully. Admiral Park studied around the table at his commanders, then back at the Kthran leadership. Leader, you might want to discuss this with your civilization first. Partnership with humanity means we'll anticipate you to maintain certain values. Safety of civilians, help for civilizations in peril, opposition to hostile expansion. Admiral, Dr. Minho interrupted, those are values we've always maintained. We just never had the power to enforce them. And now you do. Now we have partners who will assist us enforce them. The formal partnership ceremony occurred 3 cycles afterward, transmitted across both human and Kthran territory. It was a straightforward affair. No grand talks or elaborate protocols. Admiral Park and Leader Hana signed a document that dedicated their civilizations to shared shield and shared values. But the real effect was experienced across the universe as other societies observed the proceedings. The humans had appeared from nowhere, obliterated 2 Vorthan squadrons, freed a complete planet, and then offered partnership instead of demanding payment. Information spread quickly through diplomatic channels. The Altarian Confederacy quietly updated their files on humanity, noting their apparent dedication to safeguarding civilians. The Crystal Singers of Vega 3 transmitted a formal communication of congratulations to both civilizations. Even the Nexus Trade Alliance, concentrated purely on business, started discussing potential trade agreements with this new power. But it was the response of smaller, peaceful societies that really mattered. Civilizations that had lived in fear of hostile neighbors suddenly realized that there was someone in the universe willing to rescue them. The initial request for partnership came from the DN Republic, a small group of mining planets that had been threatened by raiders for years. Then the peaceful collective of Arcturus, a group of artist thinkers who had never created fighting machinery. Within weeks, 17 different societies had submitted formal requests to join what was becoming labeled as the Terran Alliance. Admiral Park found himself in the unusual position of being a diplomat as well as a fighting leader. He met with delegation after delegation, each representing civilizations that had never pictured they could stand up to universal bullies. Admiral said Ambassador Vera of the DN Republic, "My civilization has been terrorized by attackers for generations. Our vessels are obliterated. Our settlements robbed. We've transmitted rescue calls like the Catherine did, but no one ever arrived. Ambassador, if you join the Alliance, humanity will treat assaults on your civilization as assaults on our own. Are you ready for that duty?" "You mean, are we ready to shield others as you shielded Kthra?" "Precisely." Ambassador Vera smiled. "Admiral, my civilization may not be fighters, but we comprehend thankfulness. If humanity is willing to safeguard the defenseless, then we're willing to do our part to support that purpose." Similar conversations occurred with numerous civilizations over the following weeks. The universe was observing as something unprecedented emerged, a fighting partnership based not on shared gain or territorial expansion, but on shared values of safeguarding the defenseless. Dr. Minho, who had become Kthra's primary contact with the human powers, found himself serving as an unofficial advisor to civilizations considering partnership membership. His civilization's experience with humanity made them valuable interpreters of human society and reasons. The key thing to comprehend, he explained to a delegation from the Keeper planets, is that humans actually mean what they state. When they promise to safeguard you, they'll appear with everything they possess. But what do they want in exchange? They want you to do the same for others. That's it. That's it. That's it. As the Terran Alliance expanded, the balance of power in the universe started to shift. Hostile civilizations that had grown used to simple victory suddenly found themselves confronting the chance of human action. The Voran Empire, having destroyed 2 squadrons in a matter of cycles, declared a strategic withdrawal from all disputed territories. Leader Hana stood in her reconstructed command room, studying out at the cosmos through the new strengthened windows. Human vessels guarded her location, keeping watch for any sign of renewed hostility. But more than that, Catherine's ships were starting to join them on guard, her civilization learning human methods and sharing their own knowledge in exchange. Leader, Dr. Minho stepped in with the newest report from the Alliance Council. "We've intercepted 3 more requests for membership this week. The humans want to know if we can offer cultural contact support." Obviously, what does Admiral Park require? He wants to make sure new members comprehend what they're signing up for. Apparently, some civilizations believe partnership with humanity means they can request rescue conquering their neighbors. Hana laughed. I assume the Admiral corrected that misunderstanding quite firmly. His precise words were, "We don't rescue beings conquer others. We rescue beings resist being conquered." As Hana studied out at the cosmos, she thought about the straightforward rescue call that had altered everything. Her civilization had been confronting obliteration, alone in the darkness. Now they were part of something bigger, an expanding community of societies dedicated to safeguarding each other and standing against those who would prey on the defenseless. Somewhere beyond, other civilizations were likely confronting the same desperation her civilization had experienced. But now they weren't alone either. The universe had discovered a critical lesson. When good beings request rescue, someone will respond. And when humanity responded, they brought everything they possessed.